Welcome to In the Foxhole. I'm your host, JC Chanowski,
Angela Schroeder.
and we are so excited to be here today with our guest, Marvin Salcido. Marvin, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Well, Marvin, it's a pleasure having you here today. Why don't you tell our guests a little bit about you, where you're from, and what you have going on in life right now?
All right. Well, my name's Marvin Salcido. I own a little landscape business over in Tyler, Texas. Tyler's known for being the rose capital of the world. We export more roses than just about anybody else anywhere. We're also known for Earl Campbell and Johnny Manziel. They're both from Tyler. But beyond that, I'm just over here living the dream with my businesses. I own like I said, a landscape business. I own a mechanic shop. I also own a hot rod restoration company, real estate company, and then I also am doing some business coaching and just loving life.
Awesome. I love that. So, the rose capital of the world. That's
Yeah,
a fun fact.
it is a fun
Yes,
fact. My head is still spinning with that. I absolutely love red roses. It's one of my favorite things. So,
there
I'm
are
just wondering,
fields and fields of them here.
it's interesting. I guess they like a lot of heat then. I don't know.
so is it less expensive to like buy roses? To like,
Oh
do you
God,
give
no,
people flowers?
no,
No.
they're still expensive.
It's like trying to buy fish from the fish market at the pier or something like that. It's still the same price.
Same price,
Oh,
not
well,
cheaper.
you have lots of great things going on. And before we dive into the trenches and the foxhole, tell us about a win that or something that you're celebrating.
Something that I'm celebrating as of last week, my wife and I just celebrated 21 years of marriage.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
That's
So
incredible.
the big win for me.
Congratulations. Yes, absolutely. Still together, and that's a huge win right there. Did you guys do anything fun for your anniversary?
Yeah, we snuck away without the kids. We my parents watched them, and we snuck off to the Dallas area for a few days.
Nice. And how
So
many kids do
it
you
was
have?
good. I've got three: boy, girl, girl, 12, 10, and 6.
Awesome. I know that.
Mm.
I got one's about to be 11 next week and a 13-year-old, both girls. I love being a girl dad. Wanted to be a dad of sons, but I had two girls who I wouldn't trade anything for. So I'm very grateful for those two amazing warrior
Oh yeah,
princesses, as I call them.
that's
Well,
awesome.
Marvin, I've known you for quite a while now, a little over a year, I guess. We got
Yeah,
introduced at the BBB, and it wasn't until just recently at ClipCon and QDS that we really started talking and getting to know each other. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity to
yes,
hear
sir.
about your story and some of the things you faced or challenged over the last couple of years. So we talk about all the goods in life and how everything is just great and people see everything that's happening and they think, wow, like he's just got this magic pill for success. How did he get there? I want to do the same thing. But I assume that wasn't the case for you, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So
I
once
mean, nobody sees the 20 years it took for me to become an overnight success.
I love that. We just talked about that
Yes.
with Dirk earlier. That's incredible. So
I
why don't you
I,
tell our
I
viewers a
heard a
little
I heard a guy say one time, everybody tells a woman congratulations when she's pregnant, but nobody knows how many times she had to get screwed to get there. So,
bit?
that's that's kind of where
That's a good
we're at.
PG. I love that. So why don't you go ahead, if you would, share a story about some of the challenges you've gone through in the business of landscaping or life, and tell our viewers about you being in the trench hole, who was there to help you
Yeah.
get through that, and how you overcame it all.
I tell you, I'll take you back to 2016 because that was a pivotal year of my life, and it was probably the absolute worst year of my life. Starting in the beginning of 2016, I was going through a massive bout of depression. I hated my job. I hated my life. I tell people that I owned a job I hated, and just in general, life sucked. I got up in the morning. I went to work because that's what adults do, but I was just a zombie. And when I got home at the end of the day, didn't really interact with my wife and kids. I was just existing. And overall, life really sucked.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I had a business partnership that was failing because backing up into 2015, our business, we got outbid on two really large jobs that we had. and we lost $1.3 million worth of work in a 2-month period. It's really hard to scale back that fast when you're a small business. And so I had to step back into the business, which I think kind of led to my depression because I was just super bummed out that, I mean, we had this thriving business and then we got the 1-2 punch. And then all of a sudden, I'm having to step back into the business as the mechanic for our business and having to repair equipment to keep the guys on the road because we could no longer afford a mechanic and we had to let him go. We laid off management staff. We laid off employees. We're selling equipment and everything we could to survive to live another day. And we brought in an outside consultant, had him look at the business, and he's like, "You're making great profit. The jobs that you're doing really good at it." He said, "But you're just not making enough money." And he said, "Quite frankly, your business cannot support 2 owners." And for me, something clicked inside me. I needed to find something else to do, whatever that was, because I knew that my partner at the time that he was not going to want to go do something else. So I knew I had to. And then because I had the depression, I knew that part of it stemmed with everything that was going on with the business and the partnership that was we butted heads a lot. And we had 2 very different visions of how to run the company. And then on top of all that, my marriage was really struggling because again, like a lot of people do, I took my problems home with me. And rather than checking them at the door, I shut down emotionally. And I was never abusive. I was never, I never did anything like that. I just shut down and I stopped communicating with my wife. And at the time, we had been married 14 years, and my wife and I had become roommates. And we just coexisted in the same household. And so, I'm depressed. My marriage is failing. My partnership is failing. My life was crumbling right before my very eyes. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get past it. Even though my marriage was struggling, my wife has always been my best friend, and she was there with me to help pull me out of the depression. And she helped work with me on that, and I was able to get beyond that. And then we started working on our marriage. And I remember something that led to a pivotal point in our marriage is we had gotten to a fight, and I didn't speak to my wife for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Like I literally did not talk to her for 2 weeks unless it was 100% pertinent to the children. I didn't talk to my wife, my best friend. And then I remember one day she came to me because, doggone it, I was not going to crumble. I was hard headed and I was not going to be the one to break and apologize first. And, and I remember she came to me and she sat down. I'm sitting on the couch and she sat down and she looked at me. She told me, she said, "I miss you."
Mm.
And I broke. And we took the next hour or 2, I don't even remember how long it was. And we just talked and talked and talked. And we worked through a lot of our problems. And we were able to get beyond the crap that was holding us back, and we were able to start repairing our marriage and continue to move forward. And like I said a minute ago, we just celebrated 21 years, May 18th. And man, I wouldn't be the man who I am today without my wife.
Love that.
She truly is the one who has been in the foxhole with me day in and day out, each and every day.
You shared that story so vulnerably, Marvin.
Gave me chills.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here.
Absolutely. And it's something that can happen as an entrepreneur, right? You were struggling really in 3 areas that things were going wrong in your business, which can often lead to a spiral of when something goes wrong in the business, we become depressed as entrepreneurs in our ego that like we can no longer fix it. We're no longer thriving on top, can lead to depression, or things that we're, just struggling with in our own mental health. And then like you said, you weren't able, because you couldn't, felt lost in those, it spiraled into your marriage because you weren't able to check it at the door either. And so it's different. I think one of the unique struggles as an entrepreneur is when you have what might start as a business crisis, but it turns into all areas of your life.
No, absolutely. It can cause your entire world to crumble.
Yeah,
But
and
that, I tell you,
I'll say one.
go ahead.
You said one part when your wife came up to you and you said, "I miss you."
Yeah,
You can be present, but it doesn't mean you're present when you're there.
yeah.
And
And
sometimes
I
life
wasn't.
and business consumes us so much that we don't realize how taken away we are from life and reality, and it affects our family, our friends, and the business. It was just incredible that your wife was able to come to you and approach you and say that, and you guys have that moment where you could sit down and connect with each other. And it sounds like it
Yeah,
was a pivotal point for you.
it was. It truly was. And now, even now, when we have intense fellowship and we're button heads, we still use
Oh,
that
I'm
phrase.
going to borrow that. Intense
intense,
fellowship.
intense fellowship. We still use that phrase, and we still come back and we say, "Hey, I miss you." And it's something that we have used in our relationship to repair more than once. But I tell you, my year got crazier in 2016. It didn't stop with just the depression in the marriage. My I still had the partnership I had to deal with. My partnership was failing and my business was failing. And I remember approaching my business partner because we had lost $1.3 million worth of work. I mean, that's a lot of work. And we were making really, really good profit on those jobs. And as a matter of fact, the bulk of our profit was coming from those jobs.
Mm.
And I remember approaching him and telling him, hey, I think that both you and I need to take a pay cut temporarily so that we can fix some of the stuff in the business. And then when income comes up, then we'll recoup our personal income and continue moving forward. It's like, but our ship is sinking and we need to patch the holes. I mean, because we were just money's coming in, but it's going out as fast as it came in. And I mean, we were barely keeping our head above water. And when I told him, I was like, we both need to take a $25,000 pay cut to just make it. And he told me, he said, no. He said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not. He said, it'll bankrupt me. And I was like, man, I can't do this. Like, if you're not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. I was like, okay, then let's ride this bad boy all the way down. And I tell you, that's when I really, really started looking for anything to step into. I literally was almost to the point where I was going to go start flipping burgers or cleaning toilets or whatever I needed to do to step away and save my family. And the last day of August in 2016, I reapproached him and I told him, I said, look, man, this ain't working. I don't care if you go or if I go. I said, but one of us needs to go. And
Okay.
this business cannot support two owners. And one of us needs to go. I own a job I hate and I've been depressed and this sucks and I can't continue on. So one of us needs to go. And what he didn't know, and I don't know if he even knows to this day, but I had already talked to my banker and I had secured a loan and I was going to write him a check for $250,000 to buy him out of his shares of the business and
Mm.
let him walk away free and clear. And I had owned 70% of the company. He owned 30%, but I was willing to buy him out. And he owned 30% of nothing. I mean, our business made nothing. We we owned nothing. And I was going to write him a check to walk away. Well, when I told him, one of us needs to go, he's like, "Man, I'm so glad you said something." He's like, "I've been thinking about this for a long time." He's like, "Why don't we do this?" He said, "We'll take the clients that you came into the partnership with and we'll throw a few more in there." And he said, "You take those and you walk away.
Mm.
Give you enough equipment for one crew and you take those and you go." He said, "But I want everything else. I want all the equipment, all the trucks, all the name. I want all the contracts. He said, I want the land. I want it all. And here was the kicker for me. He told me, he said, I'll even keep all the debt. And I was like, you know what? I'll do that deal on one condition. I'll walk away. I'll sign it all over to you. I said, if the bank releases me from all liability, they allow me to walk away, they take my name off of everything, then you can have it, and I'll go start over. And we met with the bank. The bank agreed to let me walk away, and I did. I walked away. I signed it all over to him. But wait, there's more. That night, my wife went into labor with our youngest, and she was in labor for 28 hours.
Oh, wow.
We were going to have the baby at home, and after 28 hours, the midwife. So by this time, it's like 2:00 in the morning on September the 2nd, and the midwife says, "I don't know what's wrong, but something's not right. Everything appears to be okay. The baby's heartbeat is good. The contractions were, back to back. She was in full on labor, but she wouldn't dilate." And the midwife, she's like, something's not right. We need to go to the emergency room. So 2:00 in the morning, I loaded my wife up into the truck, and we made the 10-minute drive to the hospital in about 3 minutes. As I'm flying down the road, I ran every red light, every stop sign, and I pull up to the emergency room. We jump out, take her in. They immediately start processing paperwork and everything. And literally within like 20-25 minutes, they're cutting her open for emergency C-section. Well, what we didn't know is that my wife's uterus had ruptured and she was bleeding out internally, and she was dying. And the doctor told me later on, he said, had you not brought her in when you did, had you brought her in 20 minutes later, you would have lost her and the baby.
Oh my God.
Well, at that time, I didn't know how serious it was. Delivered the baby, baby's healthy. They immediately rushed me out of the room. They proceeded to continue on with the surgery with my wife for about another hour. Well, one surgery turned into 2 surgeries, turned into 3 surgeries, turned into 4 surgeries. She had 4 major surgeries, spent 2.5 days in ICU. She almost died on the operating table a couple of times. When I said my world was crumbling in 2016, my world was crumbling. I'm sitting there with 3 babies, and I'm trying to figure out how to tell my youngest, my older 2, how mommy might not come home,
Wow.
and just trying to process all that. And while I'm in there dealing with my wife and everything that's going on, my business partner is splitting the company behind my back, and he shoots me a text, and he's like, "Hey, when you get out, I've got some paperwork for you to sign." And that's neither here nor there. We ended up going through this whole thing, and we went back and forth between attorneys and whatever else. And I left within 30 days. October 1st, 2016, I walked away from that business and I completely started over. And then, of course, you know, since then, I've grown my business from the 150,000 in business that I took with me to last year. We closed out right at 5 million in sales.
Oh, that's
And
incredible.
man, it's been a wild ride. Back to my wife, she's made a full recovery. Actually, 2 days in, 3 days in, the hospital came to me and they're like, "You can take your baby home. Here you go. Good luck." And I was like, no. I told him, I said, "I don't know what you need to do, but I'm not leaving. So you better find me a room because I'm not leaving this hospital." And they were gracious enough to find me a room and allowed me to stay near my wife. I couldn't stay in the room with her because she was in an ICU, but I could go and visit. Within a week, she had recovered enough that they were able to send her home. And now today, she's made a 100% recovery, and everybody is healthy and happy and living life.
I love that. That's beautiful.
So,
Yeah, a beautiful story of, coming not just full circle, but building to the incredible things that you have today and everything that you have going on. And it's a story of, we just heard one as well, and I've had it that in my own story of how it probably felt to give everything up, right? This business that was kind of your baby, even though it wasn't going well, it's something that you built. And the feeling of walking away of all of it and starting
I was
over.
lost. I was lost. I remember walking away, and the final week leading up to me exiting the company, I mean, I had 30 days from the time I had the conversation with him to the time I left, and I lost an entire week in the hospital with my wife. So I had 3 weeks to figure out how to start up a company and exit. And so I'm trying to figure all this stuff out and trying to secure warehouse space, and I had to locate a truck and buy a truck. And I mean, a lot happened in a really, really, really short amount of time. And it was down to I couldn't find office space because I knew I couldn't office at home because of my kids, and I would never get any work done, and nothing would be able to. I wouldn't be able to push the business forward. And so I was trying to find office space. And I remember approaching my business partner, and I told him, I said, "Hey, look, I know I'm leaving. I'm supposed to be out on Friday. Can you give me another week? I'm having trouble finding office space." And he said, "No." He said, "I want you out."
Wow.
And I said, "Okay." So I loaded all my crap up. And I remember backing up to the front door of my house, and I'm just throwing stuff in the house and just like, I got another trip to make. I'll be back. And then getting home, and I just sat down and I was like, what do I do now? What do I do now? I was lost. I didn't know what to do. This business, my baby that I had built up, was gone. I gave it away to somebody else, and I was just like, what do I do now? And I just, screw it. I'm going to make this happen. And I sat down and I talked with my wife, and I told her, I said, babe, next 3 years are really going to suck. I said, I did. I told her exactly that. I said, the next 3 years are going to suck. I'm going to work a lot. I'm going to be gone 12, 15 hours a day. I said, but bear with me. I'm going to make this happen. And she said something to the effect of, you've said that before. And I said, I know, and it's not fair to you. It's not right. I said, but I'm going to make this happen. I didn't have any other choice but to make this happen. And that was another pivotal point for me. There was an explorer in 1519. His name was Hernan Cortez. And when he when he landed in the New World, he told his guys, he said, burn the ships, because he was not giving them even the opportunity to go back. And that was my burn the ships moment. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to make this happen. And I did. I put everything I had into my business, my heart and my soul. And I pushed my business forward with everything I had, because I knew that I had no option for failure. I had to make it happen. And dang it, I did.
Again, I love the burn the ships analogy. I
Yes.
hadn't heard that, but that is the difference that sets really successful entrepreneurs apart, right? Because lots of businesses fail. People have to start over, whatever circumstance it was that you're, leaving this business or losing a business that was your baby. And the moment that you decide and pivot, like, I am absolutely going to build again. I'm going to burn the ship. There's no plan B. I'm not doing something else. I am absolutely going to make it happen. And it isn't starting over. You don't know that at the time, but I remember that you're starting from experience this time.
Yeah.
Instead of starting from the ground zero of the first time, it is a disillusionment of how am I going to start over again? But that
I
experience
had experience on my side the
Yes.
second time around.
And one of the key things to being a successful entrepreneur is mindset. And even though it was hard for you to approach your partner and say, hey, we need to sacrifice $25,000 each for our company to survive, that's not easy to say. I mean, you lived a
Yeah.
comfortable lifestyle for so long, and now you're going to take away all that much money, but you knew that was what was needed in order for the company to survive. You had that mindset that this is what we need to do. And he was like, no, I don't care. Like, we're just going to keep pushing through that. And that's,
Momentary pain for long-term gain.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I'm
So,
full of
You
one-liners.
got one-liners for in here. Intense fellowship, the burn, the ships.
So tell us now, that was 2019, I guess. Well, 2016 when you left
2016.
it. And
2016.
then you said the next 3 years, you told your wife you're going to be grinding and pushing through. Was it the full 3 years? Were you able to get through it sooner? And where are you at today?
So I was able to replace my income right at the 3-year mark because I had taken a $60,000 a year pay cut to walk away, and I was able to recoup it within 3 years. And then, of course, now I'm significantly over that. And I mean, we're continuing to move forward. I've in that since I left, I've bought out multiple companies. I've thinking back, I don't know, 8 or 9 companies since I've left, and then I'm still looking for more to buy out because the beauty of buying out companies is it propels you forward. You would think that you take the income from your company and the income from that company, put them together, 1 plus 1 equals 2, but it doesn't. 1 plus 1 equals 2.5 or 3 because it leapfrogs you forward into the future. Because yeah, I could grow my business organically just through marketing and whatever, and I could grow that bit as much as the business I bought out. Absolutely. It's just going to take years of my life to do that. It's going to take time. Well, time is the most expensive commodity that we have because it's one thing that you can never get back. And so when I buy out another company, I look at the cost factor versus time and how fast is that going to leapfrog me forward. And if it's going to save me years of my life, even though it's expensive, it saves me years of time and it
Mhm.
catapults me forward to where I'm able to do way more than I would have if I had just organically grown 3, 4, 5 years. It leapfrogs me 8 years into the future because of the compounding effect.
I love you telling the story of your acquisitions, and we've had the opportunity to hear you share it on a couple different platforms. But many people don't feel like or think like that. Growing in multiples and what those acquisitions can do, aren't thinking that big or aren't thinking in that way. Like you said, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're growing our business. We know that we're growing it organically. We set goals for the business we have to move it forward. And I'm going to hit, this million mark. But you added in those multipliers of thinking differently of how many can I buy up?
Well, I think the,
Yeah.
the big thing is we think that we can't afford it, but I'm sure,
Yes.
Marvin, you found a solution to that.
Yeah, and we've been able to cash flow through them. And one thing I do is I make sure that my businesses that they live on their own or they die on their own. I don't coexist businesses. I don't take money. I don't steal from Peter to pay Paul because I do have some businesses. Like I said earlier, I've got a landscape business, a mechanic shop, and they don't feed each other. I don't take money from this capital and put it over here, even though there are benefits from owning both companies. They need to survive on their own. But, like you said, with buying the company out, the benefits that you can do because of the multiples that it gives you, 1 plus 1 is not 2, 1 plus 1 is 3. And then the addition of the net worth, you can leverage that to buy out the business. So a lot of these businesses that I've bought out, even though I've used leverage and I've used other people's money, I've bought them, used my bank's money and stuff like that. I've been able to take the added benefit of the net worth that it has given me and then leverage that to buy it out. And I've bought it out for, buy them out with zero money down because, I've been able to pay this note down and then take the addition over here and then move that money over here. And it's this whole moving money game. And then there's also ways that you can do it and you can do it through like an annuity and they are essentially owner financing it and you can pay them out over many years and the benefit for the seller of doing it that way is they don't get that huge tax bill all at once. Because if I write you a check for $2 million, you're going to lose virtually 50% of it in taxes on day one. But if I spread that out over 5 years, well, you've spread your tax burden out as well. So you don't get that massive tax bill right up front. You spread it out and you don't lose as much money that way. So a lot of different ways to play the game, a lot of different ways to finance it, negotiate. Man, it's a fun game to play. It really, really is.
And I think knowing all those strategies is, a huge advantage because a lot of business owners, when they sell, they're like, well, I just want the payout now. They don't think about the taxes and all that, those things like that. So being able to approach them and say, hey, do you want to make this much money or do you want the government to make that much money? And to be able
Yeah.
to strategically structure it that way so it's a win for everybody, that's probably part of the reason you're able to acquire all these companies is with all that knowledge and approaching them with those
It,
facts.
it definitely is an added benefit because look at it this way. What if I told you, okay, I'll give you 2 million for your business up front, or I can pay you 3 million out over the next 10 years. I'm paying 3 million whether I'm paying it to you or I'm paying it to the bank. It's just who's getting that money. I'd rather pay it to you and you spread your tax burden out versus losing 50% of it up front because 3 million really isn't 3 million if you get it all up front. It's really 1.5 million.
Right.
So you made more money getting it spread out.
Like so I've enjoyed hearing your like the way you tell it and all the different combinations of, like you said, in those scenarios, it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the business buying it, and that you've just had so many different strategies that are thinking different than other people. And like you said, I think so many people think that that's outside of their realm because they don't have the cash. And
Yeah.
I love watching you sit at the table in New Orleans and just light bulbs going off of other people. They're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
What?
Let's start making phone calls.
Yeah.
If we buy out today.
Like
Absolutely.
You did what? So you have such an incredible bounce back story. You were vulnerable with us about, not only the struggle that you were going through in business, but on that personal level, in your relationship and just the things you were going through. And it's important to talk about that. That's why we want to not just share. So many times, I think young entrepreneurs just see the highlights reel, like Instagram, the great parts of the successes and the glamour of owning a business, but we don't often talk about the mental health issues of it, how it affects your relationships. And so as a result, they think they're on their own in that struggle. So we appreciate
one of the misconceptions that there are in life and in business is I'd say everybody, a lot of people think that life and business are black and white, and they're not. Nothing is ever black and white. I can get angry at an employee because they're consistently late, but let's look deeper. Why are they really? What's going on in the background? Did they lose their babysitter? Did they have a flat tire on the way to work? Did they just have a death in the family and they're just grieving and they can't make it? They just can't get out of bed in the morning. What is truly going on? Yeah, at a certain point, you do have to make a financial decision and make a business decision. But many times I try to look past that and say, okay, let's dig into this deeper. How can I help you get your life together or support you so that this is no longer a problem? What can we do to help you to move forward? And, in life, I mean, yeah, it would have been great if my original business would have continued just moving forward, but life isn't black and white. And I got that sucker punch and I had to walk away and I had to start over. But you know what? It was probably one of the best decisions that I ever made. I truly don't believe that I would be where I'm at today had that not happened to me. I had somebody ask me one time, they said, if you could go back in your life and you could change all the bad, would you? And originally I said, yeah, absolutely, man. If I could just take out all the bad and just keep the good, man, that's what I would do. But that wouldn't make me who I am today. And yeah, I've gone through some really sucky stuff. Yeah, life has not always been black and white. I've had those sucker punches. I've been kicked in the gut, but my past has made me who I am today. And I don't know about you, but I like who I am today. So
we love who you are today.
Yes, we do.
well, thank you.
And going back to that one part, like with my team, going back to my Navy background, we called it intrusive leadership, was knowing your people and just being able to recognize when something was off. And we don't need to know all the details, but it's important to know your team and recognize that, hey, something just does not seem right today. Like he didn't come in smiling or she's just a little bit off. and to be able to approach them and talk to them about that. And it's good to be able to do that with each other, with friends, business partners, things like that. Because if you don't recognize those things and it keeps carrying on, is when things get too far into the deep zone, and it can be too late at that point. So
Yeah, absolutely.
well, Marvin, I mean, honestly, one of the highlights of what you talked about today was your partnership with your wife. And it was so easy, or could have been easy for both of you to say, I quit and walk away. And you had that moment where she was able to approach you and say, I miss you. And that's just strong. That's strong about your relationship and your love for each other. And here you are now still kicking it. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Do you have anything you want to share or leave as parting words with our guest?
When you're struggling, when you're down, when you feel like life has kicked you in the gut, don't go through this alone. Reach out. I know, JC, Angela, I know that y'all are willing to. I'm willing to talk with you. We're here to support you. We, as business owners, we live stressful enough lives in and of itself. That doesn't mean that you have to go through life alone. So if you're down, if you're struggling, reach out. Let us be in that foxhole with you and help you to overcome and live to fight another day. You're not in this alone.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't have ended the episode any better. Yeah, we are all absolutely here for you, and don't be in that foxhole.
So if our viewers want to get a hold of you, reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. That is going to be the easiest way to get in touch with me. I'm at Marvin Salcido on both of them. So, and actually, I just got my blue check mark today, so I'm super excited about
that. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, hit me up at Marvin Salcido.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Marvin. Thanks for tuning in. It's been another episode of In the Foxhole.
Thank you.